morning, world. This is Steve Rao. Sorry I have my headsets on. I'm having some issues with my computer today, but I hope you can hear me. And I wanted to kick the show off today. Got to leave a little early today, but today we're going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump's address to Congress. A very divided nation, as we can see. That was 2 days ago, but it was amazing to see a president who's issued 70 executive orders, more than any president in modern history. The continued focus on federal cuts, withholding aid to Ukraine, um, a very turbulent and disruptive time in American politics. And of course, the tariffs kicking in. What does this mean to our economy? What does this mean to the United States relationship in the world order? And a post Trump world now, with what they're saying is Trump 2.0. What does it mean for freedom and democracy around the world? We'll be talking about that. And of course, this evening is world politics. I'll probably be gone this evening. But there's so much to unpack. I think that everybody's on edge today in America. And I think Trump is sending a message that he is delivering on what he promised to the American people: deportation of illegal immigrants, tariffs. And now, of course, we don't know whether Ukrainian aid would be dependent on an apology from Zelensky, but we saw a real tirade with these individuals that were, in the White House, Vance screaming at them and at Zelensky. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a great show ahead. I wanted to give a high-level recap, but I think at the end of the day, we need to continue to ask ourselves how we got here, and what is the Democrats' answer now as they have to prepare themselves for the midterms in 2026? Will this help them? And if so, who will they be shopping around for to win the White House back in 2028? Some names that I've heard about is Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, or will we have to get unconventional and come out with a new Democrat, maybe someone who isn't in elective office that could make a run for the highest office in the land? But anyway, Mark, go ahead and get started. I wanted to do a condensed version of my monologue.
No problem. Glad to be here with you and everything. Today is actually a milestone day that a major event happened 44 years ago. I was going to start off with that, and I don't know if you are aware of this and everything. And by the way, I did read an article yesterday where they were talking about Tim Walz and also possibly AOC possibly running for president. But that was an article I read yesterday. But on March 6, 1981, a news reporter that I had a great deal of respect for actually retired. So he retired 44 years ago today.
Who's that?
The legendary Walter Cronkite. So Cronkite.
Oh, Walter Cronkite, and I used to, I'm sorry I forgot, but I always wanted to be. Here's the irony: is I always wanted to be a journalist, and my daughter is getting back from Nairobi this afternoon. She was at Reuters for about a year, but one of the things is whenever I would sit down at the dinner table after tennis practice, we would always watch Walter Cronkite. And I would always say, and when I became I ran the school newspaper and did my own show, and I would always interview people, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
March 6th. I know.
Yeah, that was his notion and everything. He retired, and I hope that Nick doesn't have the same policy. I have to ask Nick if he's got the same policy, but hopefully he doesn't have the same policy because he retired back in that day because it was required that employees retire at CBS at the age of 65, and I'm only 3 years away from 65 or 2.5 years away from 65. So hopefully we don't have that policy here at Pod TV, since I know we have some octogenarians and some septuagenarians and others in that space. So hopefully we don't have that rule here. But he was also upset with the entertainment-focused nature of modern television news, and he was also suffering from back and stomach problems. He also hosted documentaries for one of Nick's favorite places, public broadcasting service and cable network, and he hosted Walter Cronkite's Universe, a science program that inspired the Discovery Channel, and he contributed essays to another one of Nick's favorite places, NPR's All Things Considered. But yeah, he published his autobiography, which I think I have laying around here, A Reporter's Life in 1996 and wrote a syndicated column, and he hosted the Kennedy Center Honors. We know that the Kennedy Centers are now being run by Trump and Trump's fans and everything like that. But yeah, I just wanted to mention this milestone day, that it was something that folks can remember, because like I said, that would have been around the time that I had just graduated high school, was in college, and that's when he retired. So any thoughts about the legendary Walter Cronkite before we get to
is he still alive?
No, he passed away.
Sorry.
When did he pass away?
Yeah, he's dead. He's not around anymore, Steve.
When did he pass away?
2009. Yeah. It's been a while.
2000 what?
2009.
Yeah.
And this is Walter Cronkite, the weather. Remember Vietnam? Remember Good Morning Vietnam? I mean, Robin Williams. He's like, and this is Walter Cronkite. The weather in Nam is hot and shitty, with a little bit more hot and shitty tomorrow.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it is. That's the way the news is, and that's the way we try to present it.
You know, that when you got your news through 3 channels, you know, yeah. CBS, NBC, ABC.
You know, I mean, but the bottom line is this, guys, and this is a great topic to talk about, and I got to run in about 10 minutes, but you know, I think when you look at that kind of journalism, it was just a different, you know, you had Cronkite, and you had Brokaw, you had Peter Jennings, right? It was a much more, you know, when I look at and I'm not ourselves included, because I think we have a great journalism here, but when you look at some of the national shows, it's like staged performance. Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, even with CNN, they're reporting the news, but they're not giving the only journalist of that caliber today left is Zakaria on Global Public Square, whom I follow his books and everything because I do so much media. But even though he leans more democratic, he always gives a context, a take, you know, an analysis of the situation. So you walk away knowing why the Republicans feel this way, why the Democrats feel this way, why is aid to Ukraine important in the post-World War order? What do tariffs mean in terms of the economy, right? Why is Trump doing so well with all his messaging? I mean, at least there's some analysis, you know, but I mean, lately I just feel like, sometimes I feel like Trump does this on purpose because he knows that I can't remember any time in the nation's history when we're covering a president morning, noon, and night, 24/7. It's like the Donald Trump channel.
Well, that's why I brought him up and everything, because even back in the 80s, Cronkite was one of those that was upset with the entertainment-focused nature of modern television news. He wanted it to be more news-oriented and less entertainment-oriented, because it is definitely a entertainment medium now and everything. I would even argue that a lot of the local and regional news is entertainment-focused as well. It's like that, if it bleeds, it leads kind of stuff and everything like that. So it is definitely a different world, even in the journalism space. I don't know that even Cronkite himself would have been accepted in the Trump White House, because remember, Trump is picking his own reporters and all along those lines, and he definitely believed in telling it like it is and all along that way. So I'm not even sure that he would be accepted if he was living and everything like that. And you mentioned the whole notion of Ukraine and everything like that, and apparently the EU leaders held an emergency Ukraine talk after Trump suspended aid. So it does look like there has been some aid suspended, and the EU leaders are close to agreeing to £800 billion defense plan. And even as the U.S. stopped sharing intel, because apparently we're not sharing intel anymore, Russia hit Zelensky's hometown, killing 4. So Russia kills 4 in Ukraine amid U.S. aid and intelligence freeze. So we're not just freezing the aid, we're also freezing the intelligence. And I know we have a reporter, Ivan, that comes in from Kyiv, and he's been doing well and providing some interesting videos and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And even South Korea is being involved now, because it looks like 15 were hurt after a fighter jet dropped bombs by accident. How do you drop bombs by accident? I don't know how you do that, but apparently South Korean fighter jet accidentally drops bombs during a training exercise, injuring multiple people, and they dropped them on homes and all along those lines. So I guess they were thinking that it was a empty area and they were targeting it and everything like that, but apparently they accidentally hit some real targets. So
it's called broken arrow. There's the U.S. has a long history. Well, everybody they've dropped nuclear weapons by mistake.
Another interesting news front that just happened yesterday is the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, voted against Trump's impoundment of funds on USAID, and they sent it back to the district court to be more specific as to which funds that need to be released and which ones don't. Now, here's the interesting thing about the 5-4 decision. Justice Roberts went with the liberals, which doesn't surprise me. He's kind of a middle-of-the-road guy anyway. But Amy Coney Barrett, or whatever her name is, she went with the liberals also. And basically, when we had Lawyers Den, we sort of agreed with that he's got a big problem impounding funds because of the tax and spend clause of the Constitution. It doesn't really hold up to the executive clause. I mean, he has what they call the weaker argument. What really got me was Alito's decision. Okay, and it wasn't his decision; it's how he came about it. He was arguing policy and justice and all this other stuff, when this should be a legal issue. It's not up to Sam Alito or any Supreme Court justice to determine to put their opinions into. I mean, they're writing opinions, don't get me wrong, but it's not a policy issue. It's a legal issue, which is a little different. The mechanics of the law are different. So Alito was embarrassingly wrong, I think, in his decision. And I think the Supreme Court did get it right.
Well, speaking of embarrassing and all along those lines, what is your thoughts, Nick, about some diplomats, I guess, that are saying things against Trump being dismissed? Because even, I know sometimes we have Shaquille, and we've had people in the past from New Zealand, but apparently New Zealand dismissed a top diplomat to the UK after his remarks on Trump. So I guess he said something against Trump and everything, and so they dismissed him to the UK after his remarks and everything. So I guess he's got to head back to New Zealand and everything like that.
As much as I would like him to impound the funds, as much as I'm irritated about the swamp drain, all this money going out the door for no reason, there's still a legal procedure you have to follow to stop it. And all he has to do is get Congress to agree to it. But it's so much easier and so much more fun and so much more entertaining for Pod TV to just issue an executive order saying, okay, no more funds. Okay, and he puts an order out there. But again, it doesn't make it legal. And we've said that on one of our shows, Lawyers Den. We said it on this show that you can write all David Walker show. You can write all the executive orders you want. It doesn't matter. They may not be legal. And one other one we believe will get struck down as birthright citizenship. It's pretty
the birthright citizenships and everything. What is our thoughts around?
You're a citizen. The only exception they seem to have made was if you're a diplomat. In other words, if you're a diplomat from another country and you come over,
diplomats and everything like that. What is our thoughts around apparently Poland and the Baltic nations? I know that Chris Greco, who is with us sometimes, is not the biggest fan of France, but Macron has put together a nuclear deterrent proposal. So France is to consider protecting European
that's big over here in Europe.
Now. So is this actually going to ever happen where we're going to have these
Mark,
nuclear deterrent?
It's big over here in Europe, Mark. Hit the European news.
Mm-hmm.
What they're looking to do is to put together a European budget equaling the United States, $800 billion in military spending. Whoa. So the Europeans look like they're going to take the Russian threat very seriously. Mm-hmm. And they do have the collective force to do it here in Europe. Remember, over here, the population is 445 million people. The economy is almost equivalent to the United States.
Right.
So in Europe, they have a lot of economic power to be able to do that once they combine. And that's the power of the European Union, which is one reason Ukraine wants to be part of the European Union. So does Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO, but they're not an EU country yet. I like them to be members, but I have my own personal, greedy American millionaire next door reason. I don't like going from country to country and having exchange funds. That sounds good, but you can imagine every time you go from country to country, some third-party intermediate swipes off 5% right off the top. In other words, you've lost money the minute you go. If you have one currency like the EU, I can go from here to France to Italy, and I never have to lose 5% every time I change currencies. So I have personal reasons I prefer the EU type of system. The other, it's just easier to get around through passports. There's a lot of good reasons for the EU and the reason that it exists. But one other good reason is collectively, they're much bigger than Russia. Russia, a tiny country, 170 million people. I mean, Pakistan has more people than they do. And really, they only have two major cities, Moscow, St. Petersburg. And I've been to one of them, St. Petersburg. And that's it. Other than that, it's kind of an empty wasteland. So I know Putin wants to make Russia great again, but frankly, I don't think it was ever great. So, I don't think it's going to be great again because Russia really never was great. It's a huge land mass. And what does he need more land for? Does he need more minerals? They got more land than anybody else. So what's this war all about? I mean, the thing that's getting me is why did you attack Ukraine? You don't need the land. You got plenty of land.
I think this is really about Russian nationalism, and I think that it's about, I watched. I know I've got to run in a minute, guys, but I watched a 60 Minutes interview many years ago with Putin, shortly after he was elected. And one of the things he said in that interview, I wish we could go back and find it, was he was giving a perspective to, I can't remember who was interviewing him, but he said, when the United States had a civil war, how would you feel if all of a sudden the United States splintered off and you no longer were one nation? Would you not remember what it was when it was the great United States? So he said, why would I feel any differently as someone that served my nation in the military and the KGB, that this country dissolved and all of a sudden my nation, the Soviet Union, was no longer there? So he said, you all are hypocrites for not understanding that. And so no matter what, there's always a reason behind it. And I think it's not about the energy. It's not about the oil. I think a lot of it, Nick, is about nationalism. The former Soviet Union, they want to have it back. And by getting back Ukraine, then they can eventually go and get other ones. And I don't know. But a lot of people have died. And I think I understand Trump's bringing up concerns of, do we want to fund it? Do we have other needs? But I think there's a lot of Ukrainians in North Carolina. Their mothers, their fathers, their children are dying. They're being murdered. Innocent people, because of just one ruthless dictator that wants to come in. I mean, Trump's, I feel bad for President Zelensky because, he's a leader of a nation. His people are dying. He didn't ask for this.
Well, you never win a war. See, that's the whole point. Neither Ukraine or Russia will win this war. They're both going to lose. Seriously. The only question is how much. Russia's already lost tons of men, so has Ukraine. And when they get into a war, it's a lose-lose situation. Doesn't benefit either country getting involved in this conflict. And it looks like they're in this death spiral with no way out. I do agree with you, Steve. A lot of it is he wants to make Russia great again. But let's also get real. A lot of the territory that's being taken is IT, like large companies, international corporations, and conglomerates. That's where the real wealth is being made. It's not being made because you took somebody's land anymore. It's because you took somebody's intellectual property. I'm sorry, So I think he's a little bit misguided and misdirected as to where Russia is going to be, quote, great again, because it's not, and they got plenty of land. Like I said, they don't need land. And they actually do need the West. I saw that interview. It looked like what he wanted to do was become part of the European Union. And they did make an application. Bill Clinton rejected it. The EU rejected it because Russia was too corrupt. In other words,
well, speaking of Russia and everything, they're saying that Russia's Lavrov rejected the compromise on European troops in Ukraine. So they are saying Russia will never agree to European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And that's what Lukashenko said and everything like that. So what is our thoughts about that? Will we have some European peacekeepers in the country eventually? And it doesn't matter what Russia says in this space.
Oh, well, for negotiation purposes, it does matter. And having peacekeepers in does matter because, let's face it, Ukraine doesn't trust Russia. How can anyone trust Russia? So if they don't have peacekeepers, they have no possibility of peace. It's just, as they say in Pawn Stars, it's not going to happen. But I'm not sure how good Trump is as a chess player. He needs to have another move behind this move. In other words, you do these what if contingency scenarios. What if they do say no? Is Trump prepared to say, okay, you said no, here's a ton of U.S. latest technology weapons to Ukraine? That would.
Folks, I'm gonna give my final take. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give my final take. I gotta head out. It's just it's a disturbing, turbulent world we live in, a new era of politics, and get ready to get your popcorn because the political theater. My final question before I take off is, I do think the 26 midterms are going to be good for Democrats, but any ideas of any names you're hearing out there for president in 28 from the Democrats?
Like I said, I mentioned that I heard that people throwing out Tim Walz's name, and a lot of Tim Walz he does in Minnesota because he's still the governor of Minnesota and everything like that. And then I've also heard even people throwing out AOC and, like you said, definitely the gentleman from Maryland and Hakeem Jeffries and others, but a lot of those are established Democrats. So I think that it'll probably be somebody from the less established categories.
Newsom.
You really need more talent in the Democratic Party. I suggest that you stay there and move up the ranks because their talent pool is really weak.
Well, if I can become the county commissioner, I'll represent 1 million people in the largest county in the state, and so that definitely will put me in a good position to continue to help more people. But absolutely, the stakes are high, so I'll be calling you guys for some fundraising opportunities. But I gotta go.
Hey, Steve, is there any possibility?
Thank you so much.
Hey, just really quickly before you leave, is there any possibility that because we've had rising stars before and everything, so is there any possibility that Josh Stein or some of the others may be angling for national office, whether it's vice president or president?
Absolutely. I think Stein would be great. I'm a huge Josh Stein supporter. He's been a longtime friend of mine. And the other rumor that I'm hearing is, even though it's not what Wiley Nickel would want to hear, that Attorney General Jeff Jackson may go for the U.S. Senate seat against Tillis because he's in a safe seat. And if he were to win, he can become a U.S. Senator. And then 28, he's got a free spring to the White House. He's 40 years old. He looks like Tom Cruise. He's got 15 million people following him on TikTok. So, but yeah, I think both those individuals would have a chance. And I think wouldn't count on Josh Shapiro as well. He's another real straight shooter, leader of the Commonwealth state. But I got to run, guys. I'm going to try to stay on next week for a whole hour, but have a great day, and it's great to see Sasha Starr. Please get Sasha's opinion about Ukraine and stuff. I got to run, Sasha. Good to see you, and I'll be back. Thank you.
Always good to see Sasha and everything.
Okay.
Right. So Gavin Newsom fits the mold of an electable candidate. He's tall. He's got good hair. He doesn't really have that much scandal. I mean, the biggest scandal is that he's governor of California, and the red states don't like that, but the biggest scandal in his time as governor was that he went out to dinner at a very fancy restaurant called the French Laundry when everybody was supposed to be quarantining for COVID. But that was, 5 years ago? And it was one dinner. So have you talked about Trump revoking the temporary immigrant status of 240,000 Ukrainian refugees?
Not yet. So if you want to bring that up.
So Trump wants to say to people from various countries, if you're fleeing political strife in those 1.8 million refugees, 240,000 from Ukraine, more than 500,000 from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and it's other countries. So the total 1.8 million people, and starting to deport them as soon as next month. Which is part of it is an FU to Biden, because Biden granted a lot of people from these countries refugee status. And, it's a huge FU to Ukraine, 250,000 refugees getting sent back there.
Yeah, well, speaking of FUs to the world and everything, apparently there's another FU that's out there as well because scientists are raising concerns as the U.S. stops sharing air quality data from their embassies. So the U.S. embassies are ending air pollution monitoring that spurred China and others to action, and they're saying that that's a big blow for pollution and research and for definitely seeing what's going on with air quality because apparently Trump shuts down the worldwide air quality monitoring program. So are we even concerned as to what our air is like and all along those lines, or is it
Well, we just lose another 4 years of doing anything about climate change.
just in general?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, have you talked about Trump issuing an executive order to disband the Department of Education?
I knew that that was in the works after he appointed Linda McMahon, and I think that that is already put in, but we didn't go into details. So if you got any thoughts around that?
I don't have the details, but what happens is then education is left to the states. And if you're in a state like California or New York, New Jersey, you'll be okay because the state curriculum is fine. If you're in a state like Arkansas or Oklahoma, you might be effed because those states are often run by idiots. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I think, is governor of Arkansas, and she will. They'll determine the curriculum.
Speaking of curriculum and everything, and this is throwing it back to Sasha. I know we wanted to hear about Ukraine and his thoughts around that, but I know you've also been following what's going on with Israel and everything like that. So, what is our thoughts around these hostage deals and even the rebuilding of Gaza? Because I know that one of the proposals, I think it was the Arab proposal, was basically turned down, and I guess Witkoff is meeting with Hamas leaders and Qatari mediators trying to advance a hostage deal. So and Israel has cut off all humanitarian aid to Gaza, and aid groups are saying that they're scrambling while the Gaza food prices are soaring and everything. So what is our thoughts as to whether we will see a peace deal in Israel that will be sustainable?
No, we are not going to be seeing any peace, sustainable or not, or any kind of peace. There is no peace. It's a war, and somebody must win the war. Then, only then, the sustainable peace could be achieved. Same thing what happened in Second World War. The Germany was defeated. No question asked. And that created a very strong and quite long peace, which is now being derailed by Trump. Trump is going with Putin. The plan is to, the triumvirate of Putin, Xi, and Trump has only one viable opponent to that, and it is a European Union. So if Trump will allow Putin to take over Ukraine, and Ukraine is the strongest army in Europe. So if there will be no Ukrainian army, then Putin will have no problems to defeat Europe, which will not have any help from United States whatsoever. And that could clean up the space for Trump, Putin, and Xi rule the world.
They're going to rule the world now. We're going to have them just take over the entire world and divide the world much the way that the countries did several years back and everything. So that's what we were theorizing, is that they're going to divide the world among themselves.
Yeah, and Ukraine is part of the deal. Ukraine, as long as Ukraine is an independent and viable country, Europe can resist Putin. If Ukraine is taken out of equation by capitulation, and what Trump is doing right now, he is quite forcefully moves Ukraine toward capitulation, because if there is no further supply of U.S. weapons, okay, that could be replaced by European weapons and aviation and so on. Certain things cannot be replaced. But again, the only good thing is that Europe, particularly Macron, they understand this setup. They understand now that America is a mortal enemy of Europe. And now, early next week, there will be all chief of staffs of all European armies willing to protect and fight with Ukraine. I anticipate that it will be definitely France, UK, Germany, Italy, Sweden, Finland, 3 Baltic countries, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, definitely Poland, and maybe a few more. We'll see. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that these countries will definitely respond.
Yep.
And obviously, another country which I forgot to mention is Ukraine itself, which is by now the strongest, most experienced army in Europe, distinguished by fighting against Russia for now 4th year, believe it or not.
Well,
Is Russia running out of armaments and troops? And is there any chance that Russia can be pushed back at all?
Well, this is why Trump is so forceful to stop Ukrainian advance, because Ukraine is very close, actually, to defeat Russia on the borderlines of power is switching now to Ukraine. Of course, Trump being following his strategic plan to rule the world with Putin and Xi, for him, Ukrainian victory is the most horrible thing there is to experience. That's why he hasn't talked to Putin. He hasn't. I'm talking about peace with Ukraine. Putin, by the way, doesn't need peace with Ukraine. Putin needs capitulation of Ukraine, and this is what Trump is delivering to him.
no, definitely. What's your thoughts around this notion of having this peacekeeping force and what's going on in Ukraine? Because I did mention earlier that he has pulled out and given intelligence as well as pulled out some of this money and everything. So what's your take on what is being done in that space, Sasha?
Oh, it's very easy. It's a plan of delivering to Putin the full capitulation of Ukraine. There is no doubts about that. Because if the war is to continue, Ukraine will defeat Russia, and that cannot be allowed. So now Ukraine is firmly together with Europe, which is natural because Ukraine is a part of Europe, unlike Russia, which is a part of Asian civilization. So in this case, Macron is ready to provide the nuclear umbrella to all European countries, including Ukraine. Russia already making such noises. I think Russians, if Trump will not deliver capitulation of Ukraine in next couple of weeks, I think they will kill him. Maybe we are looking at.
I just want to know, who do you think will do that?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that his supporters take him out, because I don't want to listen to them anymore. I don't want to make him a martyr. I don't want them to go, if you hadn't killed him or taken him out of office. I don't want to hear that anymore. I want him to just screw up, because he's going to do it so bad that his supporters are going to take him down. And that whole hoorah about nobody stood up and cheered for the boy with cancer that survived. Well, you know what? They cut the funding for cancer. Why would they bring in a child who survived cancer when they cut off our means to survive? And I say ours because mine too. Without that research, I'm not going to live. So what on earth did they do that for, other than to force people into cheering? Because you're always going to cheer a child. That child was being used, and that was wrong. Just like Trump used the death of someone last year, I forget who it was, but the parents contacted him and said, do not ever mention our child's name out of your mouth again, because you're just using our child to promote your campaign, and that's not what
to get political mileage out of it. It's so
right.
It's horrible.
Right. But I'm sorry, you know what? How can I stand up and cheer? Are we supposed to cheer because that was the last survivor of cancer from cancer research? I don't know. I don't know what his, other than I think it was for political purposes, but they need to drop it. Yes.
Okay, very important consideration. You should think about how come that all Republican Party just lied down under Trump. How has that happened, and what are the reasons for that?
Well,
I was looking at some possible reasons. Okay, there are two. Actually, one is very, very easy to understand because they all feel grateful to Trump that he won the presidency and Senate and the House, so that he made the position of Senate and House, and of course all the representatives and senators, Republican, quite inviolable. And this is one reason why they're all, you see, they understand that each of them means zero, just nothing. And they understand if they will say anything against what's Trump doing or trying to do, they will lose next election. Trump will put another candidate against them and will support them. And Musk will pay $5 trillion to get this candidate elected.
So I've
They
spoke
step to death to
Right.
be. But this is one reason. The reason number two, much more important than that.
right.
Reason two is that
Go ahead.
United States is now becoming the worst enemy of the democracies in all world. This
The
is
world.
whole world.
In 60 days.
and
60
particularly-
days.
But
No one
speaking-
else could have done it. You know what? We need to give Trump the award for creating animosity in the whole world.
But
I
speaking of
agree
that, Kim, speaking of that, and this is just Sasha as well, and everything. Speaking of that,
with
it looks
Rick
like
Charles
China
that.
is looking at this notion of Taiwan unification and everything. So they're pledging to advance the notion of Taiwan unification at their annual meeting that they have every year and everything like that. So what is our thoughts around this? Because just like Russia invaded Ukraine, does that invite China to invade Taiwan and everything? So
I don't know, but Rick has had his hand up for
Yeah.
a few minutes. Let's
if
see what
you
he
wanna-
wanted to say first.
Yeah, if you want to know what Americans in general think of what Trump is doing, it just became a little bit harder. The number one poll aggregator, the 538.com, they collect all the polls and then they do math on them and tell you what Trump and other politicians' average approval is, was just shut down by the company that owns it, ABC Disney. So you can no longer get up to date polling numbers from 538. There are other averaging sites like Real Clear Politics, but Real Clear Politics leans conservative, so they'll pick more conservative pollsters, so they'll show Trump doing slightly better than 538 did. On the last day that 538 was in business, it showed Trump going underwater, going from net positive approval to net negative approval, but now they're done.
Right.
just really quickly, what is our thoughts around terrorism and how it is being done? I mean, nobody was a fan that I'm aware of what Hamas did, but apparently 9 vacationing students were missing in Mexico and they were found dismembered on a highway recently and everything like that. And they even had a chilling cartel warning to thieves that was found on a note stuck to the victim's body as new details emerged in the slaughter. So that's right in our backyard and everything. And Chinese students were found guilty in British court of drugging and raping 10 women. So are we going to start having that whole notion of being the world's police and everything like that? And should we be the world's police? Or do we just
First off, I want
Mexico?
comment on something. In January, they found 56 bodies in
Right.
a mass grave. In October, there was another group of young people kidnapped. This one was in particular unusual. I'll have to go do my homework, but it was in Oaxaca. You know, most of the students were from Oaxaca, which is considered one of the safest cities in Mexico, which scares me now because I let my son go to Oaxaca as a resident student there for months, and he swore to me it was safe. It's not anymore. I don't know what all of this is about. I don't know if this is Trump's, maybe somebody's doing this intentionally and being paid to do this so that we instigate war against the cartels. I think the cartels are bad. I don't know who on earth would have tortured these children. Were tortured first, massively tortured. They've supposedly, that's what the coroner has said. But I just think that this has been going on for a long time. This is not anything new. A grave with 56 bodies just found. We're overlooking something. We're smoke screening so much that we're overlooking the value of lives. We're overlooking people being killed. And I just wanted to mention that it's not just been these 9 people.
It's not just those 9, and it's and we know, because I know that certain people on this network were involved in the military, and I have friends that were in the military, and we do know that unfortunately, rape and kind of like heinous acts are part of war and everything, because they're even in Sudan, in Africa, they're saying that hundreds of children are among the rape victims of that war, and they're saying that the UN put that out, and they're saying that sexual violence is being used as a war tactic against the Sudanese children, and that's what UNICEF reported on yesterday. So we do see that people are using these kind of heinous acts as part of the entire war. And I think that I had even heard similar things, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of their actions that were very heinous that the Russians were doing in Ukraine that I think you've reported on a couple of times, Sasha, if I remember correctly.
So,
Sasha, I can sent you an email of someone who was very instrumental
Yes.
in
Thank
rescuing people from Ukraine. He lives here in the United States. He was, just be prepared, he used to be a Magus. So I call them Magasses, MAGASS, because they're a donkey, right? So, the Republican Party. But anyway, he was and then his partner was also not, business partner was also just a die hard. And they both recovered. They said it's a recovery thing. It's almost like a slap in the face and, oh my God, what the hell have I been doing? Because they both will tell you, they were doing things that were just not them. So, but anyway, I think you'll like speaking with him. And he's big in media, and he could help you.
I will send him and you as well a link to tomorrow's program. It will be an interesting program tomorrow. Sorry, I was interrupted. I couldn't finish my
I'm sorry. Go ahead. But I was excited. I wanted to share with you about that.
No, I really appreciate it. Now, what I couldn't finish is the second reason why all Republicans are behind Trump. Trump is, by nature, he's a gangster. There are no, he's a communist, whatever. But because of his support, he is able now to carry anything, whatever he desires to do. He doesn't have to hide like in the first term when he was a president. So there was a Congress, he lost majority in the second part of his term. So he had sort of maneuver here and there. Not today, he doesn't. He goes right in the open. He can say now that Putin, my best friend. If he hasn't done it so, why? He can do it now. There will be no consequences. He has complete immunity from the judicial, court and Supreme Court, and also all Republicans who owed to him for his victory in election and their majorities and so on. So they will support anything what he will say, anything what he will do. Even if they would, even a year ago, they would think that it's crazy to suggest something like this. Suggest that he will become an enemy of European Union and Canada, and side with Putin, who is a murderer. He is
I
a
agree.
murderer, absolutely. There
I
are no doubts about that. And now he is absolutely betrayed Ukraine and delivering its capitulation to Putin. It may not happen, though. You know, both Putin and Trump, on many instances, they failed to deliver what they promised for various reasons, but they did. They have that in common. And I think that their strategy to divide the world with sea, it will fail ultimately. Emmanuel Macron is now getting ready meeting early next week of the chief of staffs of all countries, which will be helpful to defend Ukraine. They are going to provide nuclear umbrella over all European countries, which will be part of this new group. The NATO, as is today, is dead because not Putin. In fact, you can say Putin because what Trump is doing. Putin, if you would give him something to add of what Trump has done so far, Putin would be able to say even a word because Trump is delivering 100% of all Putin wishes. Okay, so Trump is doing Putin's job, but there are still some other forces that Trump is not controlling today. He is not controlling Europe. He is not controlling Canada. You've seen our Prime Minister Trudeau, his speech to Trump and the United States people. You sent to me this video. I saw it. I watched it. It's really fantastic. I was never impressed with our Prime Minister, as you know, but I think he's done a wonderful job on this occasion.
Oh, it brought goosebumps listening to him address us and say, I'm so sorry this is happening to the people. I am so sorry that the American people are going to be suffering. And then he looked directly in the camera and said, this is for Donald Trump. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, he called him Donald by first name.
Right,
Hey,
Donald.
Yeah,
Right. Go ahead, Rick. Rick, you've had your hand
So you
up.
were talking about what's up with Mexico and murdering people. And the Heritage Foundation, they're the authors of Plan 2025, which is pretty much a plan to dismantle the government and the Trump and his people are following. But the Heritage Foundation does some stuff that is not terrible. And one of the things that I use is they have an annual index of economic freedom. And basically it ranks all the countries in the world by, how capitalistic they are and how free you are to live your life and do business in that country. And so you can look up countries like Mexico, and it's got like 18 different indices or something for each country. And the problem with Mexico is that gives it a fairly low ranking is that the government integrity is super low. Their government is entirely corrupt. They're owned by the cartels. They're the police and are owned by all the money that the cartels make. And the people who run the cartels are ruthless, but they're not necessarily smart, and they don't suffer any consequences. So they will do stupid stuff like just murder a bunch of college kids or whatever, because they're idiots, they're thugs, and there are no consequences.
Well, speaking of stupid and idiotic and everything like that, I think Kim brought it up in the past and everything, but the VA is supposed to lay off something like 83,000 employees this year, and there are some folks that are concerned that this may harm veterans' care and even the employees are saying that, even though the DOJ is planning to cut VA contracts. So what is our thoughts around this notion of something that could directly impact the VA? They're saying Trump administration plans 15% cut to VA workforce. So that was reported earlier today.
Well, I mean, one thing it shows is that Trump has zero respect for veterans. If 1/4 of the people let go from the VA are veterans themselves.
Right.
And even before people were let go, people have a hard time getting timely services from the VA because they're understaffed.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be worse. They want to cut half of the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you go to the IRS for is help with issues you have with your taxes. You know, the Republicans would have you believe that everybody who works for IRS works auditing, you know, just regular folks. And that's not true. I don't know what percentage of IRS employees are in charge of audits, but, you know, the IRS is broken and rich people know how to use that. I asked my wife, and our accountant, why are we even paying taxes at all? Because the IRS, it used to be when the IRS was fully staffed, you had to be on the up and up with your returns. And now rich people, they can play all sorts of games, and the odds that they will get caught are low, and it costs the government hundreds of billions of dollars in lost revenue from people avoiding taxes.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, who's doing the vetting in there? Because that's one of the articles that came up as well. And I know that Sasha will be interested, as well as some of our other folks that have Jewish background and everything. But apparently, and I know you've got that as well, but the Republicans are denouncing the Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson, because apparently he's been out there for years doing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and apparently he's got a long history of bigoted and xenophobic posts and everything. So he was even condemned over a tweet about Jewish victims lynched by a Georgia mob and everything like that. So,
right, so I think I saw a little bit of that pop up on Twitter yesterday. I thought he's probably a Leo Frank truther,
right,
which refers to a case from, I don't know, more than 100 years ago, where a guy named Leo Frank owned a factory. And one of his employees, a young woman, was walking home from work and got, I think, raped and murdered. And somehow Leo Frank was accused of doing it. And again, there was no evidence of this. And then he was taken out of the, when you lynch somebody in that context, you grab them out of a jail because you don't think they're going to, and you kill them yourself. And that's what happened to Leo Frank. A mob broke into the jail, grabbed him and killed him. And, there's been, in the 100 years since, there's been a lot of, books written and analysis showing, no, he didn't do it. But there are anti-Semitic lunatics who are out there saying that he really did do it. If you're a Leo Frank truther, you're a special kind of asshole.
Yeah.
And if this guy, this Pentagon press secretary, is out there spreading that stuff along with other stuff, yeah, he shouldn't be a press secretary.
It sounds like he shouldn't be a press secretary and everything like that. I remember years ago there was that Robert Mapplethorpe artwork that involved Jesus and piss and everything like that, and all along those lines. But there is a new one. This one coming out of Denmark, and apparently a 10-year-old girl, just like we know Greta Thunberg brought attention to a lot of things around climate, but this 10-year-old girl spoke up because there were some piglets that were stolen from an art exhibit where they were meant to starve to death. So I guess part of the art exhibit is watching them die, but that sounds very weird to me and everything. But the piglets were left to starve as part of a controversial art exhibition in Denmark, and that has been stolen. So I don't know, what is our thoughts about protest art? Because apparently this was a protest art, a piece that was planned to starve 3 piglets to death, and maybe that was supposed to give a message to Mother Nature or something like that. So what is our thoughts around protest art just in general? Because sometimes it can be very...
Well, most frickin' art does not, kill
Right.
sentient beings. In Colorado, when I was, I don't know, 40 years ago, some asshole did what was supposed to be a piece of art called Shot Dog Film. And this guy adopted a puppy from the pound and then took video of him shooting it in the head. And that's not art, that's just cruelty and sadism. And he was prosecuted. If you want to explore the themes of that, you're an artist. You could draw it. And now with AI, you don't even have to have any drawing skills. You can just tell AI to make the images you want, and you don't have to kill any actual animals.
No.
Yeah, agreed. So you don't have to do that in the lease bid and everything like that. So, by the way, we'll have a barber show coming up at noon, so that should be coming up shortly and everything along those lines. But definitely a lot's going on in this world of virus and all in that space. So I was just curious, coming back to you, Sasha, and everything like that. But how much are we going? When are we going to see Europeans on the ground and everything in terms of these peacekeeping forces, or do you expect we will see them anytime in the near future, or is this something that'll be years down the line? Because Ukraine has done a masterful job of defending their own country and everything. But what is your thoughts as to these folks coming from other parts of Europe?
Well, peacekeeping force obviously suggests that there is a peace and you need some force to guarantee it. As we speak, there is no peace. Neither there will be a peace anytime soon. So therefore, there is no need for peacekeeping forces whatsoever. It's Ukraine who is going to defeat Russians. They already run out of steam. They cannot continue their attacks. There is a stalemate, whereas Ukrainians, they are liquidating their refineries, oil refineries, even those that are as far as 1,500 kilometers away from Ukraine, and they're hitting them successfully. And they are now consolidating all their weaponry that they have, and they have enough weapons to fight for at least 6 months, perhaps longer. And of course, Europeans, they are awash with cash. They have so much money that US is a little beggar with $36.5 trillion worth of debts, the piece of nothing. So they will not be able to compete with Europe and European power. And whatever the technical advantage in the arms that the United States have today is only because Europeans, while US already developed them, they didn't want to spend any money to develop what US already done. Since US was a so-called friend, they were in NATO, they were here and there. Right now, with the facilities like Airbus, like Rheinmetall, the companies that US has nothing even close to this European concerns. Europe will go past US easily in the next 5 years. It will be even a question.
I can help you out with that one. Europe, in case you don't know that, it was on the news today, is putting together an $800 billion, actually billion euro budget that equals or exceeds the United States for defense.
I just want to go back to the Heritage Foundation real quick. Heritage Foundation has some real creeps working for it, like people who want to make sure that sex is only for procreation, but they also have some decent economists working for them. And I want to recommend this Index of Economic Freedom that I talked about. If you're shopping for a country to move to, you can, their top countries, Singapore, Switzerland, Ireland, Taiwan, Luxembourg, Australia, are all countries that have, according to Heritage, great economic freedom. So if you
What do they think about DR and Costa Rica? My cousin's thinking about moving to one of those two countries, or Belize.
I don't know. I'll have to look
You're only one metric. You're looking at economic freedom. You got to look at another metric: whether
Well,
if
no,
you-
because they have 18 variables in determining this. Like, and so you still
Yeah.
got to. I mean, otherwise you're looking at like Condé Nast, Traveler magazine, and that stuff is.
Well, the
more
thing
subjective.
is, I had to look at another factor, weather, because if you look at some of these countries, oh, there's a wonder to live in, great. Go to Norway, Sweden, and all the Nordic countries, the north end. Have you been to that England? The sun never shines on the British Empire.
Right, but if you like to drink, so the sun comes out for 4 months a year, and then you walk around outside, and then the other 8 months a year, you go to a pub and you get a little smash on Guinness.
I did my summers at Oxford University, St. Edmund's Hall. And let me tell you, it was the most depressing place. I loved Oxford University. I loved St. Edmund's Hall. But the weather, no good Floridian can stand that
Well,
weather.
we have to continue this conversation on world politics. We got other programming coming up during Thursday and everything like that, but we do have world politics coming up at 5 o'clock, and we've got Coco coming up at 6. So it's time to get on out of here and everything.
Bye-bye.
Bye.